According to prosecutors, in the early morning of March 29th, 2021, at around 2:30 a.m., 21-year-old Ruben Roman, dressed in a gold-colored jacket, could be seen walking on Chicago's South Sawyer Avenue towards 24th Street. Ruben wasn't alone. He was accompanied by another male wearing a white hat. At 2:36, as they approached the corner, a vehicle passed by and Mr. Roman pulled out a Ruger 9mm. Mr. Roman got into a shooting stance and started firing at the vehicle. After letting off 8 shots, Mr. Roman and his companion fled north on Sawyer and ducked into an alley near 23rd Street. The gunfire was picked up by ShotSpotter. ShotSpotter is a sound-based GPS gun detection system that operates through a series of sensors to identify potential gunshots and alert officers in real time to the location of gunfire. 10th District officers received the ShotSpotter notification at 2:37 a.m. and responded to the scene in less than a minute. When the officers arrived, they saw Mr. Roman and his companion in the alley and began to chase on foot. Sometime between Mr. Roman firing at the vehicle and entering the alleyway, he handed the gun over to his companion. The officer in pursuit threw Mr. Roman to the ground and gave chase to the gun-wielding companion, ordering him to drop the weapon multiple times. Cornered, the white-hatted male tossed the gun and turned to the police officer, which is when the officer fired, shooting once, hitting the male in the chest. For the first time, the officer saw the individual who had been holding the gun. It was a boy. His name was Adam Toledo, and he was only 13 years old. Just 3 days earlier, on Friday, March 26th, Elizabeth Toledo walked into the 10th District Police Department at 6:58 p.m. to file a missing persons report for her son, Adam Toledo. Adam was a student at Gary Elementary School and known as a happy boy who played with Hot Wheel cars and liked to ride bikes with the youngest of his 4 siblings. He was someone who would cheer everyone up with just his smile. The following day, after filing the missing persons report, a detective with the 10th District phoned Elizabeth for a follow-up. Elizabeth gave the detective good news. Adam had been found. He was back home. The missing persons report on Adam Toledo was closed. Only 2 days later, though, that same closed missing persons report would morbidly come into play again. Because when the police killed Adam, they didn't know who he was, and it would be that missing persons report which would serve as the key in identifying him. Of course, the police had asked Ruben Roman to help them in identifying Adam, but Mr. Roman gave them a fake name. This left police with no idea who this child was that they had just killed. All they knew about him was he had gunshot residue on his hands and fingerprints that didn't match any records in their database. At that point, the department began to review missing persons reports and reach out to nearby suburbs to try and identify the boy. Detectives searched open missing persons cases and were unable to identify Adam. So they began to review cases in which a person who was reported missing had returned home. In those files, they had found a potential lead. Elizabeth Toledo had filed a missing persons report that matched Adam's description just a few days earlier. March 31st, 2 days after police fatally shot Adam, detectives contacted Elizabeth Toledo about the missing persons report she had filed. Elizabeth told detectives her son had returned home and then left again, either late March 27th or early on March 28th. She had not seen him in several days. The police told her that the description of her son in that previously filed report matched an unidentified person in the morgue, and they would like for her to meet them at the morgue. She met the detectives at the morgue, and there she identified and was presented with her dead son. So, what of Ruben Roman, the man who had been firing the gun that night with Adam? Well, as Adam was being pursued in the alley to his fatal end, Mr. Roman had been tackled earlier to the ground. According to prosecutors, as Mr. Roman was being arrested, he dropped a pair of red gloves, which ended up testing positive for gunshot residue. Mr. Roman asserts he didn't know Adam, and the only reason he was in the alley that night was because he was waiting on a train. After providing police with a fake name for Adam, Mr. Roman was released on a misdemeanor charge of resisting a police officer. However, he failed to appear last Wednesday at a court hearing on an unrelated case concerning a gun probation stemming from a July 2019 sentencing. In that case, after pleading guilty to a single count of unlawful use of a weapon, after which prosecutors dropped nearly a dozen additional weapons of charges against him. Due to his failure to appear last Wednesday for a probation hearing, a judge issued a warrant for his arrest last Friday. Roman was found at his mother's house, hiding in a closet. His head was shaved bald, which prosecutors believed was an attempt to hide his identity. Roman now faces felony charges of reckless discharge of a firearm and unlawful use of a weapon by a felon, as well as child endangerment and violating his gun charge probation. Roman's attorney rejects claims that Roman was endangering Adam, saying there was no proof that the gun belonged to Roman, or that he was wearing the red gloves that tested positive for gunshot residue, or that he even brought Adam outside with him in the first place. According to the state, if Roman does not bring Adam with him at 2:30 in the morning, if he doesn't bring his gun with him while on gun offender probation, if he doesn't shoot that gun 7 or 8 times on a city street with Adam standing right next to him, and then fleeing with that gun, none of this would have happened. Here we are now, at the blame game, trying to find someone to pin the death of Adam on. Was it the police for being trigger happy? Was it bad parenting for allowing Adam in the street at 2:30? Was it Mr. Roman for giving the gun to Adam? Was it the justice system that allowed Mr. Roman to even be on the street in the first place after having a dozen gun charges being pinned on him? Or maybe it was Adam himself. I don't know, but one thing is for sure, there is great political capital in finding the right narrative and the right enemy, and you can bet your bottom dollar that there will be those trying to convince you that it was this person or that person's fault. Or as a famous politician from Chicago once said,
you never want a serious crisis to go to waste. And what I mean by that is an opportunity to do things that you think you could not do before.